All right. Hello, Sheena.
Hello,
Really,
Jazz.
really glad to see you there. This beautiful place, Solterena Retreat Center and Mindful Academy. As you know, we have this intention to record these interviews with NBSR teachers, so we can share experience about the teaching, about mindfulness, and just in general, raise awareness about mindfulness practices and specifically mindfulness-based stress reduction program, especially in Russian-speaking countries, because it's something very new, and we're happy to bring that to Russian-speaking countries. So intention is just to share, and I have some couple questions. So before that, can you tell a bit about yourself? So who are you, and what do you do?
What do I do? So I'm Sheena Burke, and I live in Ireland most of the time. Right now I'm here in Saltereno, the center, the sacred center of Mindful Academy, Saltereno. And I'm a psychologist, a clinical psychologist by training and background. And I've also worked as an educational psychologist in the school system. And I'm a certified mindfulness teacher, trainer, supervisor, practitioner. And I come here to Saltereno a few times a year. I'm very lucky to come here and be part of the training team. I really value the space that Saltereno has created, both physically here, the location, but also the kind of virtual space, the community that is an international community. So I really get a sense of that when I come here as well, to kind of ground and connect with that. And I really enjoy when we have lots of different people coming, and whether that's calling in online or coming here in person. And so I really enjoy that flavor of the common human arriving here. So yeah, so that's me for now.
Thank you. I'm really curious, how do you define what mindfulness is?
Yes, it's a curious thing. So I know I'm really struck by this as well. So I know it's a thing, everyone has their own definition, maybe even of mindfulness, a kind of lived definition, and certainly in the research, it's a common challenge, because how mindfulness is defined in different studies is different. So we're coming to realize that. And for me, I like simplicity. And for me, mindfulness is simply awareness. That's it, this being aware and being human, though, that dimension, captures. So those two kind of threads captured for me. And this being aware is this, I guess, being aware moment to moment of what's arising, what's happening, what is my experience. And knowing that in an embodied way, in a whole bodied way, not in a thinking mind way, but actually bringing in the whole of the body. So embodied awareness. And then the being human bit really speaks to the quality of mindfulness. So sometimes mindfulness can be this kind of cold, bare awareness, whereas that's not what it is for me. It's really necessary to have this quality, another dimension, which is this acceptance, the science of accepting our moments just as they are, and also that attitude of non-judging. So all is welcome, whatever arises, this is welcome. Whether I like it, whether I don't like it, whether I understand it or I don't understand it, all is welcome. And that quality of non-judging, there's a lot of judgment in our lives as humans, we're conditioned and trained to judge, a lot of blaming then and shaming. And I for me then that aspect of mindfulness is crucial, to really actively practice non-judging, a counter effect to all of that judgment. And then the other part, I guess, is that because I guess often we judge our emotional, well-being and our emotional moments. Some things are allowed, some things are okay, some things not. So for me, mindfulness has been very much like an emotional education, an emotional recovery, of recovering all the emotions that are allowed and knowing how they, just knowing them in the body, in the mind, and how they might influence my impulses and my actions. But again, surrounded by this non-judging, but that's a practice, it's constantly a practice to practice non-judging. And so I really value that. Yeah. And I guess one of the ways, the being human bit, I guess it also speaks to maybe almost one of my first steps into becoming aware of mindfulness, which was a poem that I heard and that was read to me. And it just really resonated. I didn't understand it in a thinking way. It touched me somewhere and I didn't know where that was. So then I was just really curious to explore that part of my being. So yeah, so mindfulness for me is that being aware, being human, non-judging, accepting, and a kind of way for me to reclaim well-being. That's my big thing. It gives me somewhere to go when I face difficulties, when just the everyday challenges of being human or show up. It gives me somewhere to go and somewhere to be and rest with and grow with. So
wow,
that's mindfulness for me.
You already covered some other questions that I wanted to ask you, especially about the attitudinal quality. That's why we call our interviews "Bring the Attitude." And you mentioned acceptance and non-judging attitudes, and also covered all this. What does it mean to you? I mean, what is this for you, and how it is present in your life? If you want to add about it, how it is present in your life.
How mindfulness is present in my life.
Specifically, these attitudinals that you chose.
Right. Yeah. I guess, there are many different attitudes and many different mindful attitudes. We know John Kabat-Zinn kind of gave us an initial head start of maybe 7 or 8, but there are many more. And I find that there are different attitudes for different people at different times. And similarly for me, there are different attitudes that support me day to day. And I was reflecting on this in terms of the attitudinal qualities, and non-judgmenting is really crucial. That's definitely a big one. But also probably the one that comes back over and over is patience. Patience. This kind of patience to not react on impulse, to rest, to ground, to calm, to create space, to, I guess, patience to drop out of this habitual head habit of driving my life into a more bodied centered place to connect with this kind of deeper wisdom, but having the patience to let that drop in, and to give time, to make time, to slow down, to really slow down. Patience is absolutely vital for me, to remind me to just slow down, and then maybe realize when my nervous system is activated, what have been the triggers, what's going on, and that it has been activated. And then this is where the active bit of mindfulness comes in for me, which is then from that space, that place of awareness, to make choices that will support kind of next steps. So patience for me, really important.
This is interesting because as we are recording this talk during this pandemic, the coronavirus situation around the world globally, how do you see this attitudinal, specifically patience, can support people during the difficult time?
Yeah. And I think it is that. I think very much. I've been very, very aware of a lot of reactivity, a lot of activation of my nervous system, and it kind of initially those kind of impulses, to reach out and to serve and how can I be helpful? How can I be supportive? But actually, I also need to recognize that that's part of my reactivity, to reach out to others,
Yeah.
you know, whereas maybe that's not what's needed right now. Maybe the first step is to reach in, you know, and connect in with what's going on for me. How is this landing for me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the initial kind of weeks, you know, being really aware of the shock, you know, it was so sudden in many ways, you know. So that kind of patience in allowing shock, my natural reaction, to be there, and not necessarily, yeah, to act on those initial impulses, but to really practice this coming back to
Mm-hmm.
being what's this experience. So, and things aren't maybe changing as fast as we might like them. So I think patience helps in this kind of practice of slowing down, of creating space, of processing, you know, of giving
Mm-hmm.
space to just see and connect with what is the impact of this for me, you know, and allowing that. A lot of I noticed initially kind of, yeah, there was this waiting for this to be over, you know. That for me was signaling an impatience almost, you know, with the present moment. I want to be away from this present moment. And then coming back and realizing, you know, right here, there is no problem. Right now
Mm-hmm.
in this
Mm-hmm.
present moment, I'm
Yeah.
sitting here. I have shelter. I'm very fortunate and very privileged to have warmth, to have shelter, to have food, to be in nature.
Yeah.
And right now, you know, and the people that I love are well and safe. So, but yet there was this mind running on to go, when this is over, when,
Mm.
you know, and again, coming back, practicing that patience to just come back here to this moment. Because this is a bit of a long game now, you know, that initial acute. And I have a sense of now, right now in this moment, I feel like we're in this transitionary time of moving from a place of a lot of restrictions on our movements to now beginning to open that up, and a sense of almost an urgency then to like get back to how things were, or those things that we missed, to reach out for those and grab those. And yet maybe now we really need to be careful, and but not be frighteningly careful, but
Mm-hmm.
to be patient and to stay grounded and move one step at a time.
Well, yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because while you're sharing, you are there in these conditions where you're at, and you are super aware of what is happening with you there. And as you said, you're a psychologist and also teacher, mindfulness teacher. So how is mindfulness part of your professional life is going on nowadays?
Mm, yeah, I would say it's all over it. It's really all over it. I guess when I first came to mindfulness, I'd been practicing as a psychologist for 13 years, 12, maybe, no, maybe 10 years, maybe 10 years. Yeah, about 10 or 11 years I'd been practicing as a psychologist. And when it arrived for me, it was very personal. You know, it was part of my own self-care and personal care. Um, I had reached a point where I was managing a service and there was huge demand. And the more that I worked, the more that I worked. And I kind of woke up one day realizing all I'm doing is working.
Mm.
You know, working late in the evenings and the weekends, doing the paperwork so that I would be available to see more people during the day. And then realizing I was missing my life, you know, it was disappearing, the days, the weeks, the months, the years. And this was no way to live. And my body reacted, you know, I was in fear, was in a kind of threat mode all the
Mm.
time. So mindfulness came to me first through looking after myself then, and realizing I can't continue to live this way. So it kind of, that's the first way. It very much grounds myself, my being, gives me space to explore that. It's very practical, very simple. It's since then it seems to have become a part of every psychology intervention now,
Mm.
is mindfulness awareness. So my own practice changed then, and it's become more delivering mindfulness-based psychology and practice with individuals, with groups. I obviously teach MBSR. I also facilitate kind of programs, workshops for professionals, teachers,
Mm.
school teachers, psychologists, and also supervision, kind of a mindfulness-based supervision for professionals who are similarly maybe struggling with the demands of their professional life. And I think this kind of more integrated way of being with ourselves supports that kind of grounding that we need to deliver and serve others. Yeah. So it's very much a part of my day. I teach groups. I come here. I do the training of MBSR teachers, supervise MBSR teachers. I'm part of our own professional body in Ireland, the Mindfulness Teachers Association of Ireland, a very new organisation. But as we kind of work with developing our community and strengthening standards and the integrity of mindfulness-based delivery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's
Well,
both personal and professional. Yeah.
where can people find more information about you, to look into courses or some resources you're offering?
So I have a website,
Mm-hmm.
www.discoveringmindfulness.ie, and I'm on Facebook at Discovering Mindfully,
Mm-hmm.
and on Instagram as well, discovering_mindfulness. Yeah, but my website's probably,
Have all the information.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
then Facebook kind of updates things. Yeah, so yeah, discovering mindfulness. It was that's what it feels like to me. I'm discovering it every day, every moment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I love being part of other people's journey, and as they find mindfulness and how to integrate it into their lives in meaningful ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As in the beginning, I mentioned that people are looking for some information, especially in Russian-speaking countries. And what would you say to a person who has an interest in bringing mindfulness into their professional life?
Yeah. I think the first place to start, you see, is with ourselves. We've got to connect with it as a participant, almost as a practitioner. And out of that comes how we integrate it into our professional lives. We each have maybe a different doorway in as well, and a way. It's a long game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think starting with ourselves is the first thing. We start a practice. The MBSR is such a brilliant. It's just such a brilliant, wise package. This 8-session model that really captures the whole essence of mindfulness, the experiential nature, the self-discovery nature, the power of a community supporting each other in being human, witnessing each other in a very safe and non-judgmental space. And I think experiencing that in that whole body way is step one. And then the other, and is to work with a teacher. We don't have to be on our own with this, but I think it's very important to work with others, in community with others at the different points in wherever we are. And then through that, we could discover a meaningful way to bring mindfulness into our professional lives in a way that's sustainable, in a way that's meaningful, and in a way that's appropriate for wherever we're at a moment in time. So they're kind of my three things. And then obviously, if you want to, as you move along the path, doing the teacher training, some people come to teacher training to deepen their own practice, not necessarily with the intention to teach mindfulness. Yeah, and certainly that was my experience. I was curious to see, could I, make this part of my working life? But I was still very skeptical, wasn't really sure about it at all. Yes, I had my own practice, and I had the benefits that I'd experienced, and I had the science that was growing as well, and was very compelling. But I still was like, not really sure about this. So I came, and without that intent, without that expectation, maybe, and even, could I be a teacher? Skeptical about that. How could I be a teacher? So coming to here, finding Soltereno, landing here was really significant, because it very much grounded and deepened my own practice and helped me connect with my own path in how to bring this into my personal and professional life. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Thank you very much, Sheena, for all this experience and sharing your experience, sharing your vision of it and your personal practice. I can even feel it, and you ground it with your voice, me. So I'm very grateful for that.
Mm.
I've forgotten. I
Yeah.
miss how your presence is powerful.
Mm.
Thank you very much for this interview.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you so much. Um, yeah. It's great to have the opportunity to speak as well, to talk about
Yeah.
it in a relaxed way as well. I'm enjoying that, and we can speak a lot from the head, can't we? In terms of what we should say, and there's so much information out there, and I
Yeah.
think coming back to it, and even coming back to the current situation we find ourselves in, I'm really valuing the mindfulness community and how they've reached out and stepped up and shown up online, and we've
Yeah.
taken a lot of risks in being vulnerable,
Yeah.
together. And I'm really valuing that strength of community, and that being human together. So a lot of teachers, I think, showing up as well, which is great for the community.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a real opportunity to identify what really matters to us,
Yeah.
right now, and how we can live. How can we live as true to what matters to us, but in community with each other? This isn't a solo practice, we
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
this is very much a connected practice.
Connected.
And that's I'd say, one of the key things for me in growing as a human being in connection with others
Yeah.
is finding ways to be human together,
Yeah.
warts and
Yeah.
all,
As one. As
yeah.
one.
And realizing that, I'm not the only one that has
Yes. Yeah.
this kind of crazy mind and all its thoughts and habits, um and sharing this experience of being human together, is, I find it so valuable. And I love the honesty and authenticity that can happen in a mindfulness community.
Yeah. No words. I want to go there and just share the practice
Do you
with
know
you.
what I'd love to?
Yeah.
Yeah, what I'd love to do is read the poem, though. The
Okay.
Guest House. If I could,
Yes, sure.
I'm going to look it up. This poem that was very much the starting point for me in my mindfulness journey. Um, many people might know it, but it's this idea of opening to all, but doing that with care. Doing that with care and attention, watching what we open up to. And I think mindfulness helps us grow the resources that we need from the inside out, and that we look at things in the pieces that are available to us and that we can do. So yeah, I thought that might be, I'd
Sure.
really like to share that poem, if that's all right. So it's called The Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Oh, I also like this poem in a Russian way. It sounds pretty, very close. I mean, when you're saying that, this Russian speaking, Russian words are rising in my head, but the core of it, I can feel it, closing the eyes and feeling this true intention and message that Rumi is delivering. It's amazing. Thank you for that. Thank you for this experience.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Yes, a pleasure. A pleasure. And I wish you all very well in your endeavors and projects. It's really wonderful to witness this expansion of mindfulness.
A community. Yeah.
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 Thank you, Sheena.
Thank you.